Destined Rivals is just around the corner. And before that storm drops, I thought we should take a minute to answer a couple of messages from you, the community. So I put out the call on YouTube. You can see the post that I made over here in the community section, and a number of you answered the call and sent me a question to answer here. Now, I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions that were submitted in this thread, but thank you to everybody that did. And today we're going to be answering some questions about Destined Rivals and so much more, a whole bunch of things relating to the Pokemon trading card game. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's answer some of your questions. I got two related Destined Rivals questions here, so I'm going to lump them all at once. And this one from Super Akita 805 asks, what Destined Rivals cards do you think will impact the meta the most? And then Brendan MCB 7102 asks, what are you most excited about in the Team Rocket packs? In terms of what will impact the meta the most, I don't think it's going to be the big new decks like your Grimmsnarl or your Mewtwo or anything like that. The cards that, based on what I just peeked at in Limitless, that are seeing the most play would be the Shaman and the Team Rocket's Watchtower. And Shaman is such a big deal for the game because for the last couple of months since Manaphy has rotated out, we have no bench protection, and we've seen cards like Wellspring Mask Ogerpon become a serious threat because it can snipe the little guys off the bench. And with no bench protection, we have seen bench sniping rise in popularity. And Shaman is, while it's not as good as Manaphy, it cannot protect the rule box Pokemon, it's still going to protect a lot of the smaller evolution Pokemon from getting sniped out. And because of that, a number of decks are running Shaman. And the other card, the Team Rocket's Watchtower, is seeing a lot of play because colorless Pokemon, it's actually kind of sneaky. I love what Pokemon did here. I am someone who loved the card Path to the Peak that would shut off all rule box abilities, and I actually thought like maybe this card should be reprinted because of how powerful it is to the game. And instead of bringing back Path to the Peak, they kind of found another way of sort of neutralizing some of those abilities without like causing the entire game to grind like a Path to the Peak would, is that they moved a lot of these support functions to colorless Pokemon, like a Squawkabilly helping you just draw a whole bunch of cards. Blood Moon Ursaluna is a attacker that you can just throw into any deck. A lot of these colorless Pokemon, the Hoot Hoot Noctowl stuff, is all colorless, and they put all of these sort of support functions into the colorless Pokemon space, and now you have the stadium that shuts all of those off in one go. And so it's going to hurt that specific type, but it doesn't slow down any of the other Pokemon of different types that have their own abilities. So you're not grinding the entire game. Pokemon basically said, like, here are these specific types of abilities, and we're going to lump them into one category, and then we're going to make a stadium to shut off just those specific functions. And I think it's a really cool way to go about it. And there's a number of players that are running that Watchtower right now, even though they're not Team Rocket decks, because it shuts off those colorless Pokemon that have become incredibly helpful over time. So I think in terms of what impacts the meta the most, it's going to be those two cards. As for what I'm most excited about, I'm always excited for new decks. And now surprisingly, the deck that has kind of risen from Destined Rivals as the new strongest deck is Marnie's Grimmsnarl. And this is something I did not see. You'll see there's a video of me talking about this deck, and I've said, like, of the Marnie and the Metagross, which were kind of released as pre-constructed decks in Japan, I said the Metagross had more potential. I'll be the first to admit that. Metagross hasn't panned out so far, but Marnie's Grimmsnarl, with a bunch of changes, has actually become the big new deck of Destined Rivals. So I'm excited to, actually, by the time you watch this, I probably have already put out my upgrade video for the Marnie's Grimmsnarl. If I haven't, it will be out very soon. So I'm always looking forward to new decks and new things to try, and that seems like the big one. I'm also looking forward to Ethan's Typhlosion as a single prize deck. Also looking for, I know Team Rocket's Mewtwo hasn't quite popped off in a way that people have hoped. Maybe we just haven't figured out the secret combination of cards, or we just don't have the right cards in the format just yet to really see Mewtwo go up in play. The other one is Garchomp, and that was one that when I first saw those, like being able to buff your damage and buff your HP to like 400, I thought this deck was absolutely nuts, and it hasn't quite panned out that way, but I'm looking forward to trying it out myself and see if maybe I could. Here I am presuming I'm going to be the one that solves No, probably not. But I would like to try it out. I think it has a lot of potential, and maybe if it doesn't pop off now, it might down the road. I think there's just a lot of good things that Garchomp has going for it. Chaz Blanks asks, for someone who is new to Pokemon, is gifting them a League Battle deck a good introduction? I love League Battle decks. They are my favorite sealed product that Pokemon has. You just get this one box and it's got a competitive level deck that you can play with your friends or go to a League Cup or something like that and play and have a good time. And with a couple of upgrades, you might have a deck that could win the World Championships. Now, if we're talking about it in the context of a gift, I think it's mostly great. You're getting a really awesome deck, and if they're looking to play at a competitive level, at an in-store tournament, or on Pokemon TCG Live, where you have the code card, they can get the deck in the game. Fantastic. The only caveats I would have for the League Battle deck maybe not being the right choice is more on the person you're giving the gift to. I think, number one, how much experience do they have with board games or tabletop games? Like, if it is someone who is maybe younger or has little experience with trading card games, maybe you want to dial it back to like a level 1 deck, and just to help teach them the bare basics of the Pokemon trading card game. And the other thing I would consider is, like, do they have someone to play with already? So you get them this League Battle deck, great, but like, do they have someone else to play with? If they don't, then maybe something like 2 EX decks or the Battle Academy might be a better gift, where you can just say, here's this box and it has multiple decks and all the instructions and the tutorial, and this can be your way of getting into the Pokemon trading card game. See if you like it, and if you do, then you can go buy the League Battle deck and start to throw down for realsies. But in general, I think the League Battle deck is an awesome gift, especially if you think they're inclined to like take that next step of want to play the game at a more serious level. Zerafim2613 asks, what gate keeps most rogue decks from performing well? It's a complicated question, but also not a complicated question. The simple answer is that rogue decks simply aren't as good as meta decks. And if you kind of unpeel that layer, the onions of why are they not as good as meta decks, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. But some of the factors might be, maybe it doesn't do enough damage, maybe it's not consistent enough, maybe it just doesn't have good matchups into the most popular decks, or enough of the good matchups. Rogue decks certainly are capable of performing well. We have seen rogue decks win tournaments. We have seen, depending on how you slice Iron Thorns at the time, like, I think Iron Thorns was definitely starting to gain some momentum, but it was not a top deck going into the World Championships, and it won the World Championship. So it's not like rogue decks are bad per se, or even just in general. I mean, in general, they kind of aren't as good, but it's not that they can't win. There are just factors at play that keep them not as played as much as some of the meta stuff. And I think in short, it's is this deck good enough to win enough times against the larger spread that people feel comfortable playing it? And if so, then they become part of the meta. And rogue decks just kind of are a step below that, where like you kind of have to respect it. They're still good, and in certain matchups, even against some of the best decks, they're great. But just against the field as a whole, maybe they're not as strong as some of the most popular and strongest decks out there. Again, not trying to say that rogue decks are bad. We do mostly play meta decks on this channel, but we do cover rogue decks as well. And some of my favorite decks are rogue decks. I loved Regidrago before Ogerpon showed up, and you can look at my channel and see all the Regidrago videos that we made before it became cool. There are reasons to play rogue decks. They can be fun, they can win, and it really is just a matter of what is the likelihood you're going to win enough games to make it worthwhile. And generally speaking, rogue decks don't win at as high of a clip as some of the meta stuff. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Should you still play rogue decks if you like that style of play, or you think it has a really good matchup into some of the best decks if you're really trying to win? Yeah, by all means, go for it. Kroji asks, thoughts on Team Rocket's Crobat with Dragapult EX. Now, there was definitely a scare when Japan revealed the promo Psyduck, and it was one that shut off Dusknoir and Dusclops blowing up shenanigans, at which point players in Japan were like, wait, can we even play Dusknoir anymore? Maybe we have to find another way. And that's when players in Japan started experimenting with Crobat EX from Destined Rivals that drops some damage counters on the board, but it's not quite as impactful as something like Dusknoir. And it did see some results when Crobat first came out in Japan, but it hasn't seen a lot of play in general. Like, just looking at this Limitless page at the time of recording, there's less than 25 top cuts for Dragapult or just Crobat, so some of those might not have Dragapult in there, though looking at this page, most of them do. So I don't think it has fully caught on, and not to say that it won't catch on ever, but right now doesn't really feel like the time for Crobat to be optimal, and for optimal in Dragapult. And especially outside of Japan, where Pokemon it's been pretty much confirmed that the Psyduck that blocks Dusknoir is not coming out as part of Destined Rivals. Maybe it comes out as a promo later, or it gets rolled up into the next set. But we're not seeing that card in the immediate future, at which point it's probably just better to play Dusknoir anyway. So maybe someday Crobat with Dragapult will be the play, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be in the immediate term. Weston Brimhall 7736 asks, first they say, love your videos, man. Here's an interesting question. What percentage of tournament results are because of the person's skill versus the deck they used? As a follow-up, do you ever think the meta gets solved for a while before the next set comes out? So technically a 2-for-1 there, but that's okay. I think this is a very interesting question. It does go into, I think there are a number of people that play the Pokemon trading card game and they undervalue skill because there is a level of variance in the Pokemon trading card game. You don't always have the cards that you need to make the right move or the optimal play. And sometimes it will be luck that determines whether you win or lose. And that's not great sometimes, but also like that's the nature of the game. It's a card game. You're not always going to have all your resources at any given time, and there's going to be some variance. But I don't think that's necessarily why certain people just get really lucky that are at the top all the time. I don't think so. And is it because of the decks they play? Maybe in the early days, like I've heard tidbits from like Tord talking about the before times. I think there definitely has been a shift in like the importance of the deck now that Limitless is out. And Limitless TCG, for anyone that isn't aware, it is a website where they compile tournament results, and there are tournaments that are hosted through Limitless as well, and they just have so much data on what decks are winning and the exact card counts and all that in a world where everybody has access to Limitless, and you can see by deck how well it's performing, and you can see how well it pairs into different matchups. I don't think deck matters as much anymore because most people are playing the same decks with a couple of tweaks here and there, but it's the same archetypes tournament after tournament after tournament. So yes, there are times where people will play a deck out of the blue and win a tournament here and there, but for the most part, the people that are doing well and the decks that are doing well are just whatever is the meta at the time. So I think there's definitely been a neutralization in decks in terms of like everybody's playing strong decks now. So I really think it's more about the players and not necessarily because they have this like killer deck or they happen to get really lucky. To prove the point about how awesome these players are, I've pulled up a bunch of profiles on Limitless so we can look at their track records. Here's Tord Reklev, who at worst people consider the second best Pokemon TCG player of all time. Shout outs to Jason Klasinski as well, the only 3-time world champion. But Tord Reklev has quite the resume of their own. They've got 3 regional championships, 5 international championships. I think Tord's the only person that has won every single international championship. And if we look at top cuts, they've got 28 top 8 appearances. These are tournaments that have hundreds and now thousands of players. And you're going to tell me like Tord just won because he had or got to top 8 28 times because his deck was that much better. And we just look at some of the archetypes that Tord's been playing of late, like Dragapult. Everyone plays Dragapult. Terrabox is a deck that everyone was playing for a while. Terapagos was a known archetype. I'm actually surprised Tord played with Regidrago. That's not something I've normally seen him play. But yeah, meta deck, Terapagos meta deck, Lost Zone, Terapagos, Pidgeot Control, Charizard. These are all known decks. And let's look at this Charizard list and take a look. This doesn't have... Okay, they had like a 1/1 Bibarel and they had the Rabsca to block the damage counters, but this isn't necessarily like Tord had some crazy secret sauce that put him over the top of anybody else. I think Tord is just awesome at the game. Here's Azul GG, one of the best players in the world, also one of the most prolific content creators in the Pokemon TCG space. If you're not following Azul on YouTube or Twitch, go do that right now. And his track record is nuts too. 7 regional championship wins. Did Azul win the lottery just 7 times? 2 international wins and then 29 appearances in top 8. Yes, there's going to be some variance. Maybe he had a hot streak here and there, but like, you are not getting lucky or beating people because you picked the hot deck or like the great deck by 29 times, really. And just looking at the most recent results here, like again, Miraidon, these are this is a known deck. Regidrago, known deck. Pidgeot Control, known deck. Snorlax Stomp, known deck. Again, these are all archetypes that people are familiar with, and just he played great. Andrew Hedrick has been one of the most successful modern players in the game, already winning 4 regionals and an international championships, already has 9 regional top 8s under their belt in a relatively short amount of time. I think Andrew has only been it's from here competitive since like 2020, so in 5 years already got 5 major wins as well as 9 top 8 appearances. Again, not luck. Isaiah Bradner's another phenomenal modern player, and he kind of had this like cloud hanging over his head of not being able to win a major tournament, but now they've got a regional championship, an international championship, and 17 top cuts. There's a reason why Isaiah is here, and it's not always because he's picking like crazy archetypes that people haven't seen before. Isaiah is just a fantastic player. I'm a big fan of Natalie Millar, and they have only 1 regional championship win, but they also have 12 top 8s across international and regional championships. And if you go through their tournament history, there's actually not that many results here. I think if you do the math, it's like 1 in every 3 tournaments that Natalie is in, they get top 8. That's an absolutely insane top cut percentage. The last one I wanted to highlight here is Henry Chow, who's had a breakout year in this last season, getting 3 regional championship wins just in this past year. And all of those appearances are all just playing Gardevoir. Yeah, just this last year, everything has come from playing one deck. And this isn't necessarily, again, that whole like, did you find the better deck over everybody else? 2 out of those 3 wins, I think Gardevoir was not considered the best deck in the format. Just Henry Chow is an absolute god with Gardevoir and has stuck with it all the way through. And so it's just a combination of an amazing player finding the perfect deck for them and just absolutely maximizing their potential with that deck. Those are just a handful of players that I pulled as examples, but if we wanted to dig deeper, we could find other players that maybe haven't won a regionals or an internationals, but are consistently getting top cut. This is a game that, yes, while it does have variance, you can get good at the Pokemon trading card game. You can optimize your hands and your sequencing to give you the best possible chance of winning as many games as possible. And players like Tord and Azul and Andrew and Natalie, Henry, Isaiah, those are just a handful of examples of players that have pushed themselves to the limit and are consistently playing well. So I do think that player skill is arguably, I think it's probably the biggest factor that keeps the players on top. So if you're looking at this game like, oh, it's luck and I just didn't have the cards and I lose, I would put that thought on the back burner and try and think about the game in terms of like, what can I do to get better? Like some of the players who are the GOATs in our game right now. I'm going to screw up this name, so apologies in advance, but Deepak Dio Dath Basteo 1672 asks, as a new player, how do you get the will to keep going? Asking this as I went to a tournament last week after testing consistently online and I only got 1 win out of 5 rounds. The people there were great and encouraged me to keep pushing on, but I felt bummed as I was up late that whole week testing and practicing. First off, I'm sorry that things did not go the way you would have hoped in that tournament. Going 1-5 feels bad. I can absolutely understand and feel that. But I think you have to give yourself a little bit of grace here, especially as a new player, especially like practicing for a week. I mean, great, you should continue to practice more, but in the grand scheme of things, practicing for a week, especially as a new player, it's not that much time. And like maybe you're a prodigy at the Pokemon trading card game. I have no idea. But keep in mind, as a new player, you've still got a lot to learn, and you're going up against players who probably have been playing the game for months, if not years, who have mastered their decks or have a higher proficiency with their deck. You are at a disadvantage. As a new player, you're probably, the likelihood of you going 1-5 is probably pretty high. So I would not I would not hold that too close and be like, oh, I'm trash at the game, I'm never going to be good at this. I think you need to compartmentalize that for what it was. You're a new player and you're going into an environment where you're probably up against more experienced players and things didn't go well for you. That's fine. Like, take that, review it, think about the things you possibly could have done better, and then move on. And where do you move on from there? Maybe you decide to quit the Pokemon trading card game. Maybe you look at it and go like, maybe I wasn't having so much fun and I would have a better time doing something else. That's totally okay. But if you want to keep going forward, there are a couple of ways of moving on from a experience like that. I think a big part of it as a new player is that you have to give yourself time. You have to give yourself time to get familiar with the game, get familiar with a deck, get familiar with the matchups, get familiar with the meta. There's a lot to learn in the Pokemon trading card game, and this is a process that can take months, it could take years, and it's okay to take time to learn all of the nuances of the game in hopes of being able to perform better at these big tournaments. Giving yourself time is great, but it's also not enough. I am not the type of person that says if you just do this long enough, you're going to get better and become an expert at this thing. I am someone who does not believe in that at all. Putting in time helps, but it has to be productive time. You have to be making an active effort to get better. And in the world of the Pokemon trading card game, I think it's a matter of being able to play games and then being able to think back or even review it on video and being able to see what could I have done better. And look, I'm not the greatest Pokemon TCG player, but being able to make this content and play matches and live stream, the internet is very quick to tell me where I make mistakes. And sometimes I will see the mistakes after, before I even put the video up, and where I catch those things, I'll try and put annotations on the screen. But people will point out hey, you could have done this better. Or there was a more optimal play here. regardless of how I get that feedback, put yourself in a position, and if you're playing on Pokemon TCG Live, if possible, record those matches as well, and watch those matches back. Think about where you were in that whatever given scenario, and think, would you play that card again? Was this the right card to play? Should you have played this card first and then this one, or should you have gone the other way around? And look at it on a moment-to-moment basis. What could you have done better? And then try and apply it in your future games, so that you are constantly assessing yourself and then trying to make those adjustments. And over time, you will build up your knowledge and skill set to a point where you become better. So it's not just about putting in the time. You also have to make an active effort to get better. And that's going to come from practice. It's going to come from self-reflection. If you are interested in maybe getting like a third-party coach or something like that, that helps as well. And that might even be the fastest way to get better and grow. Having someone who is familiar with the game play with you or watch your footage and being able to tell you, like, these are the scenarios or these are the things you could have done better, could even help you grow even faster than just trying to learn on your own. All that said, welcome to the Pokemon TCG. Give yourself some time to grow. Ryan Thomas Ang asks, would a Greninja Dusknoir line work effectively against Destined Rivals Shaman? What other Pokemon would be effective against this card as well? So this is actually I don't necessarily think players are teching in a Greninja EX, the fighting one. Just so we're clear here, I'm talking about Twilight Masquerade Greninja EX, which I'm assuming Ryan is as well, because that one has the snipe attack. And I think this is a really great time to talk about Shaman. And Shaman does block damage, but it does not block damage counters. And for those who are new to the Pokemon trading card game, you might not know the difference between those two things. And technically, damage and damage counters are the same thing, right? 60 damage and 6 damage counters are both 60 damage, but the way that they are applied is different, because dealing 60 damage and dropping 6 damage counters in the Pokemon trading card game are considered two different things. This is why, let's say, Shaman can block the snipe attack from Wellspring Mask Ogerpon that does 90 damage. Shaman blocks that. However, Shaman will not block Dragapult's Phantom Dive, because those are damage counters. So it's like two different ways. Like, it's the difference between, say, I'm just thinking of two different weapons here. Let's talk Ninja Turtles. Like the difference between like a sword and a nunchuck, right? Think about it in those terms, right? So Shaman will block a sword, but it will not block a nunchuck. And the game kind of gives you two different ways of distributing damage, so that there's a little more depth in the gameplay, and you can block certain things while letting other things go through. And so in this particular example, Greninja will not hit Shaman, because Shaman blocks Greninja's snipe attack, but it does not block Dusknoir from blowing up. So that's just a little reminder, or if you're new to the Pokemon trading card game, kind of that explanation of the difference between damage and damage counter. So in this scenario, Dusknoir will work, Greninja will not. In terms of other Pokemon that would be effective against this card, certain other things, like, so Dragapult is one that I mentioned, and the damage counters, it cannot block that. The other big one is that Shaman does not block Monkey Dory. So Monkey Dory can move damage from your own Pokemon to your opponent's Pokemon, and because it's not damage, it is moving damage counters. Shaman doesn't block that either. So despite Shaman being in the format and being able to block direct attacks, it's not going to be able to block everything, whether it is Dragapult dropping damage counters, Dusknoir blowing up, or Monkey Dory moving that damage from one place to the other. Thank you to everybody that submitted a question this week. Even if I didn't get to yours this time, thank you. I'll try and keep it in mind when I do the next Q&A. And if you want, I will put up another Q&A post at some point in the future, and you can ask your question there. You could also ask it in the comments of this video, and hopefully I will grab it for the next one. But for now, I gotta get going. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at @InThirdPerson. You can find me on Twitch at @InThirdPerson, where I stream the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And check out the website inthirdperson.com for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. So until the next one, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.